Hello, welcome to the Radical Podcast. It's your host, Ryan McKenna, and we're back with another episode talking about some radical ideas that could dramatically shift humanity's path, which is, I think, what more and more people are recognizing every day is what really needs to happen in this world. We need something dramatic to change because so much of what we do is based on flawed assumptions, faulty logic, poor reasoning based on fear instead of an understanding of, interdependence and the interplay of systems and the fundamental universal nature of consciousness itself, which everything, all the facts, all the information thus far, please, if I'm wrong about that, someone dredge something up and throw it at me, because I have looked through so many scientific texts and every new paper that comes out or every new article for something that contradicts this notion of interdependence and just some sort of a fundamental unifying principle, and everything is panning out as no, everything affects everything, and that really is the basis for my belief that what we're doing in all of our institutions right now is just so backwards, because everything is based on a fundamental disconnect, that humans stand apart from nature, that people are basically selfish, that we are basically, by our human nature, that's the basis of economics for anyone who hasn't taken a beginner's course or in university or read up on it. That's the basis for modern capitalism and modern economics, is the fundamental assumption that everyone is selfish. In other words, even if you do something good, you're doing it to get that good feeling in return, or you're doing it for accolades, or you're doing it for something like that. So it just poisons our notion of who we are, which is, one thing. Anyways, I've gone on a bit of a tangent. Today's topic is direct democracy. Direct democracy, for anyone who doesn't know, is the idea of everyone having a say, not just in who represents you, but in what those representatives do on a day-to-day basis. In some models, your representative is replaced entirely by technology. Personally, I think that's the way that we should go. Crowdsourcing is obviously something that's taking off, not without its hiccups, as might be expected. But, for example, you've got Uber, you just got an average person with a decent car and a mobile phone, and boom, you're an Uber driver. Boom, you sign up for your account, and someone needs a ride, it pops up on your phone, and you say yes or no, right? There's all sorts of other crowdsourcing opportunities out there. Airbnb is basically crowdsourced hotel rooms, or crowdsourced B&Bs. And that's just the way that things are going to go in the future. Jobs or things that need to be done are going to be posted online for different people in different areas. And you're going to go on there and you're going to select what you want. And if you get there first, then you get it. And I think that it's just going to be a lot of stuff like that, where people are going to be picking and choosing based on their lifestyles. Now, where does direct democracy come into this? Well, direct democracy is crowdsourcing democracy. That's exactly what it is. You're posting, bills that need to be passed, or issues that need to be discussed in our current flawed system. We're just trusting that the person that we elected is going to go in behind closed doors and do what they said they were going to do. Well, we have no basis for that, and in fact, the overwhelming evidence is that they do the exact opposite as soon as they get into power. They go behind closed doors, and they immediately start to undermine what they have said that they were going to do, because either what they said they were going to do is not possible within the current paradigm, because many things within the current paradigm are just not possible. If you want to do anything radical, like things along the lines of what Bernie Sanders wants to do, you have to fight tooth and nail against every corporate lobbyist out there. The only reason why Bernie Sanders might be able to accomplish what he needs to accomplish is because of the momentum behind him and the vast majority of people that are going to be watching very, very, very carefully if he is elected, and are therefore going to, they'll be holding the spotlight on everyone surrounding Bernie Sanders. And Bernie Sanders, I think himself, if anyone tries to intimidate or otherwise manipulate him, he'll simply hold that up in front of the spotlight and say, "Listen, this is how it works here." Because I don't think he's got much left to be intimidated about. So back to direct democracy. There's a number of technological options, but one of the options that might be a stepping stone towards that is direct democracy parties, and these are popping up in different places around the world. They're really just in their infancy, so don't really expect to see them on a lot of ballots, except in by-elections in the next couple of years. But it will be the new way of doing things, and if we do it right, then we'll also convince current parties or current representatives to adopt some sort of a direct democracy interface. Now, so how that works is you elect a representative who signs a pledge, and that pledge is that they will do what their constituents tell them to do via the interface. So maybe the interface is an app on your phone, and you can scroll through all the different issues that are currently up for discussion, and you can vote them up or down in terms of importance, and you can add comments as to things that you'd like to see amended, and other people can look at your comments and your suggested amendments, and they can vote those up and down. So what you end up with at the end of the day is the very topmost results for both the amendments and just basic approval and priorities are what's coming to your representative, and then they have to look at that, and because they've signed this pledge, they have to address those issues next time they have the opportunity to speak. And they have to bring those to light, and they actually have to offer a solution based on what you, the constituents, have recommended and requested. And everyone else's constituents voting on this are going to have to follow what their constituents are ordering them to do in this regard. So in that light, they're truly representative of their constituency. It also eliminates a lot of hackneyed party politics because at this point, you don't need a party line, you don't need any sort of party ideology, you just need the input of constituents. So no one really needs to label themselves. They can say, on this issue, I think this is really important and I have a very strong opinion, but on this issue, I have no opinion whatsoever, so I'm not going to participate in that one. And even if someone has a really poor opinion, this is all essentially peer-reviewed because everyone in the constituency is going to be examining it and picking it apart and going, oh, well, this is a really, really bad amendment because you didn't take into account this, this, and this, and I'm going to vote this down, and I'm also going to convince everyone else to vote it down because it makes such poor sense. So, as you can hear, this is not something that the current power structure would want. This is what makes it a radical idea, because it's not that radical. This is something that has been understood for a long, long time. And the basic fact that we're trying to fight against is centralization of wealth and power, consolidation of wealth and power into the hands of the few. Because that's what you're doing when you vote someone into power. You are actually relinquishing your power to them. You are saying, my democratic power is to be entrusted in you to do what you see fit. So you and everyone else who is basically put under that person's rule or that person's responsibility are giving them your voice, your power. And you're centralizing it, you see, even when you're just talking about municipal politics. You're taking your neighborhood, your community, and putting all of its power, all of its voice into one person. So you've centralized it. Now, to control that one community, you just need to control that one person. And that is very, very, very easy to do. It's easy because human nature is basically predictable. I don't mean human nature, sorry, I believe that's a bad term, but human behavior under the current conditions. That's a much better way of saying it. Human behavior under the current conditions is predictable. It's not predictable under new conditions, and that's why they don't like the idea of any radical change. But under the current conditions, you can instill fear in people quite easily from a position of power and wealth, or you can inspire, if not loyalty, then certainly the greed required to keep someone at your side and doing what you tell them to do. So what I'm saying is, you can either threaten someone, you can bribe them, blackmail them, you can extort them. If that doesn't work, you can go after their friends, their families, their neighbors, their reputation. There's a lot of tools in the manipulation toolbox. It takes a very, very, very brave person to stand up against it, because there are so many ways that they can hurt you, or that they can twist you. They can manipulate your image. Look at the news media, especially in the United States. They can distort everything about you until the public has absolutely no idea who you are and who this image that they've created is. They don't know the difference. So that's why it's so, once an entire community, an entire state or province, an entire nation has entrusted all of its power in this very small group of people, a prime minister or a president and their cabinet, and then, a relatively small group of people in a state of representatives or parliament or a senate, you've put the power of millions and millions, hundreds of millions in the case of the United States, tens of millions in the case of Canada, into the hands of hundreds of people. Like less than 1% easily, much less than 1% of your population. That is a massive centralization, a massive consolidation of power. Now, the massive consolidation of wealth is in the billionaires and the mega millionaires. There are 62 people who own over half the wealth of the entire planet. 62 human beings. That is a massive, massive, massive consolidation of wealth. Of course, wealth in this world, under these conditions, equals power. So, that's an imbalance. That's a huge imbalance. And I think we can see it in weather, that nature snaps things back into balance. If the scale tips too much to one side, there will be an event as a result that snaps it back the other way. Everything in nature, everything in the universe works on the principles of waves. You're either riding the peak, or you're heading for the trough, or you're coming back up, and so on and so forth. Every process can be reduced to a wave. Show me one that can't. Seriously, if you can find one, show me one that can't. The point being that we need to restore balance. And that's why a radical shift is needed. That's why we need to impose radical ideas on our elected representatives. Or the alternative is creating a system of direct democracy that operates independently of the current system, that you can convince, if not an entire nation, then at least an entire state or province to convert to. It only takes a few to start it off. Now, there is a system called Democracy OS. Just Google it, Democracy OS. They're also on Twitter, @DemocracyOS. This is a system that is to be imposed, or sorry, I shouldn't say imposed, that's a forceful word. This is a system that is to be introduced by anyone who wants to on any constituency, no matter what size. I believe there's already people working on a Democracy Earth platform. And Google that too. Democracy OS Earth. That's a global direct democracy system, which is ultimately something that we're going to need. I think it's going to take the form more so of networked communities worldwide. So you'll have direct democracy within your community, and then to a more limited fashion on the global level. But your community as a whole will be its own voice. So you'll vote on what the community says on a global level, and so on and so forth. And everyone will add their voice that way to the global scheme. I don't necessarily think it's going to be everyone's just voting on global matters. I think it's much more important to keep our voices at home, where our impact can be more directly utilized. It's very hard to maintain a picture of the global chessboard for most people. So, each community having a voice and an overall policy is ultimately, I think, the best way that we could have it work. In any case, there are options, and I strongly encourage you to look into this and to go to your town hall meetings, go to your neighborhood association meetings and talk about it. Talk about new ideas with people. You'll be surprised at how many people are eager for new ideas and something interesting to talk about. Something gives them hope. Hope is the new drug of choice just due to its scarcity in this world. Up until recently, people thought nothing could change, and now everything can change, and we're just wondering how far we can push it. How far we should push it. My personal view is a hell of a lot farther than we are right now. Let's keep going. In any case, to put it in a nutshell, the problem that we have right now is an enormous consolidation of wealth and power in the hands of the few. We can see how, under the current conditions, with greed being the primary engine of growth in this world, the primary engine of development, we can see that because greed is so entrenched in who we are and what we do, that a consolidation of wealth and power is untenable. It is not something that we can allow to continue, because it is absolutely corrupting. Even if some people manage to resist being corrupted, like Bernie Sanders. What has Bernie Sanders been saying the whole time? The system needs to change. We need radical change. That's what he's saying. That's how he's avoided getting corrupted, because he hasn't dropped that ball. He's kept bouncing it for a few decades now, because that's what's needed. And he recognizes that, and because he recognizes that, he's able to protect himself. It's only by accepting the nature of the system that you can start to work on changing it. We can't imagine that it works in our favor under these circumstances, realistically. So, we have to accept that it is a fundamentally corrupting system, so that we can all put all of our effort into finding something that works, something that's evidence-based, something that we can look at and go, we are basing this not on the ideas of people from a few hundred years ago who had nothing else to work on, really, but rather on the collective intelligence of all of mankind, which is what we have at our fingertips, each and every one of us now. This is our strength. We are so powerful, connected. We have so much power to understand and to deconstruct and reconstruct, and to do it on a global scale, to share our ideas, our mistakes, our lessons. So let's pursue direct democracy. It really is the future. I'm going to leave it there for today. Thanks for listening to the Radical Podcast. I encourage you to bring me all of your feedback and criticisms. Let me know what I got absolutely wrong, and let me know what you liked. And give me some ideas for some radical topics for upcoming podcasts. I'm always looking for the new ideas. I started this podcast to begin a discussion, not just a one-way stream. So get back to me and let me know what you think. For today, Radically Yours, I'm Ryan McKenna.